All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our webinar series for March, still March. We're going to be talking about smart home devices, and I'm going to put up in the chat the slides one more time for those of you that just joined us. So it is a bit.ly link, and it's going to be bit.ly/smart home devices APTAT. So it's going to be a capital S for smart, a capital D for devices, and then APTAT, all capitalized. And it is in the chat as well. All right. Make sure everything's there. So just a heads up, please feel free to type your questions in the chat as we go along with the session. We will make sure to have time at the end for participants to jump onto the microphone. If you prefer to ask your questions verbally, that's not a problem at all. And of course, the session will be recorded and available through our YouTube channel, and that is youtube.com/@ and then APTAT. Okay. And then next, we want to talk about our captions and language translation services today. We do have live captions available. So to access those, if you do not see a little CC button at the bottom of your toolbar, just click on the More button. It'll be over to the right of your Zoom toolbar, and you'll click that, and then you should see the option for captions. And then we also have Spanish language translation available. And thank you to the Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities for providing this service for this webinar. And very similar to captions, you will see a similar button for interpretation services. I believe it looks like a little globe, and you can click on that and then select from English to Spanish. If you do not see that globe, again, click on the More button, and then you'll find that interpretation service.
Saludos a todo el mundo. Vamos a estar interpretando esta sesión al español y al inglés también, si usted quiere participar en español. Para poder acceder a la interpretación, seleccione el símbolo del globo que está en la parte inferior de la pantalla, en la parte de abajo. Seleccione lengua o también si está en un dispositivo móvil le puede dar a los 3 puntitos y le darán las opciones de interpretación. Entonces, seleccione su lengua de preferencia, ya sea el español o el inglés. Si tiene cualquier problema con la interpretación, por favor, déjenos saber o escríbale a las personas que están corriendo la llamada. Gracias. Hello, everyone. We'll be interpreting today to English and Spanish in case there's any Spanish participation. Everyone who speaks English, please be sure to turn on the interpretation feature and to select the English channel so that if we do have to interpret from Spanish to English, any questions or anything at all, you'll be able to hear us. Thank you.
All right, thank you everyone. Apologies for that delay. Welcome again to our webinar, and this is APTAT, or Accessing Potential Through Assistive Technology. We are the Alabama AT-ACT program. Our mission is to increase knowledge, access, and acquisition of assistive technology throughout the state of Alabama. We are a federally funded program, and we do this through several different activities. Those include our short-term device loan program, our reutilization programs. So durable medical equipment can be donated in one of our 5 locations, and then people can pick up that equipment for free. We also provide a variety of trainings, including this one that you're seated at today, technical assistance, and then additional resources for financial assistance. So just a slew of things to help you know more about assistive technology and get access to it. One of the biggest questions we always get is, who are we for? Is this only for people with disabilities? Is this only for their caregivers? We are here for everyone and anyone in Alabama. So that could be a person with disabilities, that could be a parent or caregiver, service providers of all varieties, companies or organizations that are interested in assistive technology to not only benefit their employees, but also their consumers. And then also the last question is, yes, we are housed as a program of Alabama Department of Rehab Services, but you do not have to be enrolled as a consumer of ADRS to utilize our services. So even though we are a program under ADRS, because of our funding, you do not have to be receiving ADRS services to work with us. Okay, so today we are going to be talking about smart home devices. And really, the easiest way to talk about smart home devices, I felt anyway, in doing my research, is to take some time to clarify some terminology, some definitions, and lingo. Now, some tech sites can be very specific in defining what makes a smart home, while they will label, or smart home hub, while they will just kind of label everything as a smart home hub or as everything as a device or an assistant. And so it gets kind of messy. So I just really kind of wanted to walk through some terminology and put us all in the same language, at least for today. Okay, so I felt, because we are talking about a slew of different types of devices, the easiest way was to approach this from one, which is the one that I purchased. And this is more of a personal journey for me. So this is my smart home device that I purchased. This is the Echo Show 10, and it is a smart display for Alexa. Now, this is a smart home speaker, but it also has a touchscreen display. So what you're looking at here is actually two of them side by side. So the way the Echo Show looks is it is a cylindrical speaker that has a touchscreen that's attached to the top of it. And also what's kind of nifty about this particular device is that the monitor will swivel almost completely around. So it will always face you as you move around the room. So if it detects that you've moved across the kitchen or across your living room, wherever you've placed it, it will turn that screen towards you if you turn that feature on. So this particular smart display is what I'm also going to refer to as a smart assistant, and it works with the Alexa system. So everybody now, just make sure if you have one of these in your home, you may want to silence her or mute her so she doesn't hear me, or put your headphones in. Otherwise, I might be making commands of your device all day long. So similar displays or smart displays could include the Google Nest Hub. So if you have one of those, it's very similar features and how it works, that it's working with the smart home assistant software, which would be Hey Google or Google Assistant. And that it's taking those commands, but it's providing you that visual display with it. Okay, so I've thrown displays and assistants. So now let's back up a little bit and actually talk about what a smart home assistant is. And this is different than a smart home hub. And the reason why I wanted to clarify these is because, again, when I was trying to do my research, some websites, especially as technology has changed for these types of devices, they're trying to call everything a smart home hub, where technically they really still fall under that assistant category. So what is an assistant or a smart home assistant or virtual assistant? These are programs that use internet and Wi-Fi to control other smart home devices that you have connected to them. There are very limited functions without access to Wi-Fi. You'll have smart devices that you will want. The smart devices you want to use need to be compatible with your system. So, when you're purchasing your lamp or you're purchasing a smart plug, you'll usually see little icons on the box that says works with Alexa or works with Google. So you want to make sure they're compatible. And some examples of those are going to be, of course, the Alexa, Google Assistant, or Apple Home. Now, smart home hubs, what are those? So the biggest difference between an assistant versus a smart home hub is going to be, instead of using your internet or your Wi-Fi, you're using something else called Z-Wave or Zigbee or Matter or some other similar protocol. And this essentially makes a network in your home to connect and communicate with your smart home devices. So if you want, so instead of where I just have my Wi-Fi connecting my devices to my assistant, I would then use this other protocol called Zigbee or Matter to do those connections for me. So while your smart assistants need to be compatible with your devices, the thing with the smart home hub is you don't need to make sure it's compatible. That was kind of part of their using those other protocols. The idea was that they could just do the communication for you. So some examples of smart home hubs would include the Samsung SmartThings, Philips Hue, and then also one that I ran across, which is an open source software program called Home Assistant. And we'll talk about some more considerations of those a little deeper into those differences, and it'll make a little bit more sense. But I just wanted to let you know there are some differences, even though a lot of times when you try to do, like when you're shopping around and searching, they kind of use the term smart home hub interchangeably, regardless if it's Alexa versus something like a Home Assistant. Okay, so we've got the assistant part down. Now let's actually talk about some devices. These are easy. So when we talk about smart devices, these are all of the things we want to control, right? The light bulbs, the fans, speakers, appliances, all of these different types of devices that can be controlled by commands sent by that user to interact with either me as the user or my other devices, right? So we control these items through their apps or through their smart assistants. So like a lamp, right? I want the lamp to turn on, so I can send that command either using my voice, using the app, and the lamp will turn on. The same thing with my smart plug, right? I can set that to interact with me via different types of commands, either via voice command or a command on an app or a command through my smart assistant. And then the other ones I have pictured here is the iRobot. So again, a smart vacuum. And then I have a picture of a smart fridge here. And then other examples include like locks, doorbells, and various other types of appliances, like my dishwasher that I just bought. I bought a very smart dishwasher, except I did a setting wrong. So the only way I can actually turn it on is through my phone. So if the Wi-Fi is down, you know, I kind of got to fix that part. All right. And if you have any questions, please feel free to start dropping those in the chat, and we'll try to cover them as we go. All right, so now we've got the devices. We have something to control those devices. So now let's talk about how we're going to do that. And again, I'm going to approach this from speaking specifically through my personal journey of using the Alexa with the Echo Show, but it's going to look very similar with these other types of assistants. So if you're using something like the Apple Home or Google, the Google Nest Hub, or you know, the Google Assistant, these are going to be very similar ways that they're going to work. They may use slightly different terminology. So instead of using skills, they may, I can't remember exactly if they use the exact wording on Google. But the way we are going to control our smart devices and our media through Alexa is with skills. So I told you about my new Echo. It sits on my kitchen counter. And it's perfect for me because now I can catch up on all my streaming shows while I'm doing my dishes with my new handy dandy smart dishwasher. But the first time I tried to do that, I told her, I said, Alexa, open Netflix. And then she told me, hey, I don't, oh, sorry, I forgot to turn the one that's on in our office off. Don't think you turned off there. I had to mute my assistant over here. So I told her, Alexa, open Netflix. And she told me she doesn't have that skill. So then Alexa actually walked me through the process on my screen to add that skill. Alexa stop. Sorry, she's trying to stop. Oh. There we go. There. That's okay. Very sorry about that. All kinds of technology issues. Okay, so I asked her to open something up. She didn't have the skill, but then she walked me through that process. Now, the same thing would happen for all my other smart devices. So if I have a lamp, I can't tell Alexa, turn on the lamp until Alexa has that skill programmed or knows that that lamp exists. Okay. All right. So I did a couple of screenshots that actually show you how to locate the skills on Alexa, on Alexa's app on the phone, and then that way you can get your stuff programmed. So here you see, when you open up the screen on my phone, you see the Alexa app. And then what I'm looking for is down at the bottom right, you'll see the More button at the bottom right of the screen. Now, you will see several other, once you open that, then you see our second screen. And you'll see several buttons like music and calendars and lists and things like that. But we want the skills and games button, okay, because we're looking for skills. So once I press that, then I am taken to the next page, which says Discover Alexa at the top. And then here is where I can actually search, either using that search bar at the top, or I can explore some of her recommended skills that are already in the system. So that's how you set up those skills. And then you can see on that screen, you know, Alexa can play an interview from a podcast, tell me the weather, tell me a joke. Those are skills Alexa's ready to go with. All right, so there's skills, but then there's also routines. Now, routines are a series of actions triggered by a voice command, schedule, or other condition. So think about it this way. If part of a routine would include something like turning on a lamp, I would need to have that skill before I could use that routine. Okay, so kind of skill, now we're gonna build a routine. So Alexa does have several pre-made routines that you can enable or you can customize and make your own. So one that I have is called Good Morning. So when I say Alexa, good morning, she turns up the thermostat, she turns on a lamp that's plugged into that room, and she announces the local weather for me. Okay, so these are all routines that I can have, or a series of actions in that one routine. So next I have some screenshots that will actually show you how to add a routine. So again, I've opened up the Alexa app and I'm looking at the routines button, and it's up at the top. And once I hit that routines button, it takes me to the next screen, which shows me a variety of additional buttons or categories that I could go to. So I could look through the featured categories of routines, but I'm gonna go to the top button that says Gallery. All right, and when I get to Gallery, I'm gonna see this one called Home Automation. It's not highlighted on the screenshot, but it's the bottom right one of these 6 buttons here at the screen. So I'm gonna click that Home Automation one. Now, when I click on that Home Automation one, I will see a very long list of pre-made routines that are already available through the app. And I really liked using these because I could kind of see how Alexa's language worked, and then I could customize and adjust. So the one I selected was Alexa can calm your dog by playing soothing music when your dog is barking, or dog barking is detected for 1 minute. So I selected that particular routine, and then the next screen shows me what that routine looks like. And you can see there are several spots where I can make some edits or some changes. So here it says, calm my dog, and it's showing me the when, right? So it says when dog barking is detected from, and then it says select device. So this is where I would select what microphone is picking it up, probably gonna be my Echo Show. And then it says after however many minutes of that sound that's detected. And then I can select the days and times that I want that to be detected. So whenever he's barking between the hours of 8 and 5 on weekdays, that's when I want this to be triggered. So that's my when. Then down at the bottom, you can see Alexa will, and then it says set the volume to whatever I want it to be set to. And then it'll say something. So I said, hey doggo, because that's gonna be the name of my dog. And then you can't quite see it, but there's some additional things that it will do. So there might be a specific song I want played. Maybe I have a specific playlist. So that's those other things that I would adjust on the screen. And then I would click save. And then the final screenshot is showing you the routines that I already have programmed and that are ready to go. And then you can see the little play sign next to it, letting me know that it's active and ready to go. So now whenever my dog would bark between 8 and 5 on weekdays, it will say, hey doggo, and it will play music. Okay. So I want to back up just a tick or two because we've kind of really looked at this from the perspective of using a smart assistant or a smart home assistant to run all these devices, I just wanted to remind you that almost all of the smart devices that you're purchasing, like the lamp, my dishwasher, the vacuums, all these different things, you don't have to use a smart home assistant to run them. Typically, they usually will have their own app, or they may have it where they have an interface within that device itself that you can interact with to program and set routines. So don't feel like if you want to have a smart lamp that you have to have, a Google Nest, or you have to have an Echo Show or an Echo Dot or something else in your house to run it. Most of those will run independent of those smart home assistants. The benefit to the smart home assistant is if I have multiple and I want them to interact with each other, this is a way I can have them, do a lot of different scheduling, and especially if I want to do much more complex routines, it's going to be much easier for me to do it probably through that assistant than trying to set up every single command through those apps. All right, so that was a big chunk of it. We got through all the lingos. We got through the hard part, I feel like, because it's all the tech stuff. See if there's any questions. Okay. So now that we have some terms and basic understanding of what our smart assistant can do and what our smart devices are going to do, let's talk about some things to think about for our clients, or if we are the individuals ourselves thinking about using these types of devices. So the biggest consideration when using any type of smart device is going to be connectivity. So for things like an Echo Show, which is a smart home assistant, or even like Google Nest Hub or Apple Home, they are really going to shine when they have good internet and Wi-Fi connection. Now there are a few things that my Echo can do when the Wi-Fi goes out. But it's also if it knows to do that before the Wi-Fi has gone out, and it knows to do it when the Wi-Fi has gone out. It could do things like just be a Bluetooth speaker, or have a timer, be set on the device. But I found that if my Wi-Fi is down, unless I have kind of pre-programmed my Echo to know what a 5-minute timer is, or pre-programmed it to recognize a device that I want it to act as a speaker for, it won't do that without Wi-Fi unless I've kind of trained it to do beforehand. And again, if I want Alexa to pull up a recipe or run a very complex routine, it's not going to be able to do that without the Wi-Fi connection. Now, if you don't want to connect to internet or use cloud-based services, that is where we might need to talk about doing something like those smart home hubs that I mentioned before, where they're not using your Wi-Fi and your internet. They're creating their own network using those other protocols like Matter. Now, most of those, however, do not work using voice commands, because most of those programs to use voice commands are using internet and AI to figure out what you're asking for. However, in my research, there is that open source program called Home Assistant that did state that it did have voice commands available without using internet or cloud-based services. I didn't have a chance to fully research it. I do have, I believe, a link for it in the resources. So if you want to dig into that one, you can. Something else to think about when it comes to Wi-Fi, and especially voice commands. If that is the only way your client is planning to interact with their smart devices or their smart assistant is through voice commands, what happens if the internet is down? What happens if the Wi-Fi is down? Will they have another way to command a door lock to be unopened, or to unlock? Will it be able to turn this? Do they have a way to turn the space heater off? Right. So these are things you're going to need to kind of work through and talk about, making sure that those are set in ways that if the Wi-Fi goes down, what are the other options for controlling those devices? All right, so we just talked about control. So let's talk about how to control all these devices. Now, this specifically, this slide is talking about, again, the assistant. So something like my Google Nest or my Echo, how am I going to control that assistant? Now, most people, when they're looking at these types of devices, they like the idea of using their voice and not having to tap on an app or a screen, which is great. That's why they want them. They don't want to have to, you know, go through, open this up, open that app. They just want to tell it to do something and it'll do it for them. Now, if you are somebody who uses an AAC device, this really shouldn't be a problem. We are actually seeing more and more language systems actually having either smart device support kind of built in, or even pages or suggested phrases being pre-programmed into those language systems, you know, out of the box. So it's really nice to see that development. Also, one of our fun things to do here in our demonstration center is we do have our Alexa. We do have quite a few different smart home devices that are hooked up to it. And then people can come in and try their AAC device out and see, you know, is my volume loud enough? Is, you know, the type of voice that I have set, is it able to detect it very well and understand it? And then that way, they can kind of do the trial and error over here before making those huge investments in their home setup. Now, if a user is unable to use their voice, they can, of course, still interact with Alexa to make routines and control devices using the Alexa app. And I always forget, and it was really funny because I was talking with somebody about it, that, you know, they have somebody who in their household is deaf and they just use sign language. But so of course they can't talk to Alexa directly using their voice. And it's so funny because when you open up the Alexa app, it looks like a little communication icon. And to me, that always means like help or tech support, but that's actually a place where I could type in commands and control my Echo Show through my app. So that way they were, you know, we just kind of problem solved it together, where they could just then use that as the way to type in a command to Alexa, because they were actually using that as an intercom system for the whole house too. So that way the person who is deaf could type something into Alexa and then make an announcement that would go throughout the household. It was really kind of neat to walk through that with them. So that's one way you can do it. But also, if you're somebody who needs keyboard navigation, so using an app maybe really isn't going to be useful for you, there is keyboard navigation available through the Alexa app desktop version. So you can actually download a desktop version of the Alexa app, and then that gives you easier access to keyboard navigation. All right, next let's talk about power outages. Yay! Living in Alabama, I don't think I've ever experienced so many power outages in a week in my life. It just feels like every other day my power is blinking in and out. So, which can be really, really annoying when it comes to smart devices. Oh, do we have a question? No? Okay.
No, I just said I feel your pain. So.
Yes. So when devices are plugged in, they of course will not work if the power goes out. Now, some devices will have a small battery that is charged when the device is plugged in. So they may have like a little backup battery source, allowing them to run for maybe a limited amount of time until that power is returned. That's one of those things you're going to have to research on those devices to see, does this have some kind of power backup? Does it have, you know, an emergency power supply battery? Just something to consider and think about if that feature is available. Of course, anything that uses Wi-Fi for remote control is not going to work either, because unless your Wi-Fi has a power supply backup, your Wi-Fi router is going to need power too. Now, for smart lamps and plugs, here's something to look for. Again, it's not every single one of them, but look to see if there's a power loss recovery setting in their apps. So what does that mean? Well, when you first turn on your smart lamp or your smart plug, when you turn it on, it's always going to be in the on position. That is its default position, because then the app controls it if it goes on or off. Well, if my lamp is turned on, but my app turns it off because I have it on a routine, When the power goes out and that lamp, right, had it scheduled to be turned off, but my power goes off, or my power outage occurs at 2 a.m., unless I have that power recovery setting available, when the power comes back on, my power thinks the lamp is turned on and then will, be blazing glory in my, bedroom at 2 a.m. because it didn't recognize the schedule. So see if it has some kind of power loss recovery setting. So that way, if the power outage does happen and power is restored, it knows to not go to default on, but to follow whatever the schedule was, or its last setting. So like if it knew it was off when the power, before the power went out, it knows to stay off even though power comes back on. Okay, so this one is kind of messy. And I'm not going to have a chance to really go through and fine-tooth comb everything when we talk about privacy and permissions. But I just want to highlight a few things that I felt were of note. Again, I'm coming at it from the Alexa interface side of things, but these are similar things that you're going to see in other smart home assistant setups. So terminology may not quite look exactly the same, but things to think about. So the first thing is the external controls for your microphone and the camera on the smart assistant itself. So my Echo Show at home has a little slide on the camera that I can slide on or off. And so then that way nobody can see me unless I want them to. And then there's also a big fat mute button. So that way I can just hit the mute and then it won't be listening to me. Now I will say, if you turn that mute button on, just remember you turned it on. I had my Echo and I spent almost 15 minutes rebooting my Wi-Fi, rebooting my phone, updating all the apps and everything else I could think of before actually checking to see if I had turned the mute button on my Echo Show, which is what had happened. So just if you use those external controls, make sure you check those first before you think there's a power outage or Wi-Fi issue. Now, Alexa does keep recordings of your voice commands and activities, but you can delete these through the app. Again, it's one of those where you kind of have to read and follow the trails. There's some settings that you can kind of do like an auto delete of the history, where you could say just automatically delete everything that's this old, or you just may decide every so often to routinely go into those settings and delete everything. Interest-based ads. Now, as much as I am loving having my home assistant, I really hate that it tries to sell me things all of the time. But that's its job. Well, that's part of its job, according to whoever made it. But so recently, I bought some gym equipment through Amazon. And it knew I did that because, of course, it knows that. And so I purchased a couple of dumbbells. And so because I hadn't bought anything the following month, right, it decided, hey, I bet you're running low on supplies. I bet you need some more dumbbells. I don't know that that's ever true. It's not like they expire. But, it was one of those things where it was really annoying that it was specifically pulling my info to be like, hey, you should buy more of these. Now, for some people, that could be a great reminder. For other people, that could feel really annoying. Now, you can turn off what's called interest-based ads. And all that's doing is it's just not pulling that information to give me those types of suggestions. I'm still going to get ads, but they're not going to be as targeted. And I will say it feels a little less frequent than when I had it turned on still. The next one that you'll see for Alexa says, help improve Alexa. Of course, it's recording your voice and activity. This isn't turning it off. What this is saying is, do you want Amazon's R&D team, their research and development team, to have access to those recordings as part of their data for their development and research of new products? So I turned that one off because I was like, they've got enough money. They can figure something else out. They don't need me. But again, that's a personal choice for you to read through and decide. This last one I wanted to talk to because this is something that popped up right when I turned on my device for the first time. And this is called Sidewalk. And It's a little confusing potentially. So the easiest way for me to just kind of walk you through what happened when I turned on my Echo. So when I first booted it up, it asked me, would you like to enable Sidewalk? And it mentioned using my Wi-Fi and my neighbor's Wi-Fi to improve my services. But it's not improving my Wi-Fi services. What it's actually doing is it will help. Essentially, what it's trying to do is create a bigger or wider network or net for my smart devices. So if I have like a smart tag for my dog, right? The dog that likes to bark at 8 a.m., right? So if I have a smart tag on that dog, and normally I can follow it on my Alexa device within the range of that specific Alexa. But the idea is if I have Sidewalk turned on and my neighbors have Sidewalk turned on, now if my dog decides to wander beyond its previous range, it's going to extend that range to detect that smart tag a little bit farther. Or if you had a smart speaker and you wanted to have a big block party, you know, instead of having to be tied as close to your house as it was before, it can now stretch out a little farther. So it's not necessarily beefing up your Wi-Fi, it's just extending the range of those smart devices. But if the internet is unavailable or there's an outage, nothing is helping that. I did have an article in the resources that goes into a little bit more explanation like of the technical side of that too. So if you want to nerd out on those or get some more specifics, it's in there. All right, so we've got some considerations, we've got some decisions, and we want to try out some different types of devices. So here's some things to think about how to make successful implementation. So first things first, right? If you're going to use an Alexa, you need Amazon. If you're going to use Google Assistant or Google Nest, you need a Google account, right? So you need accounts for each of these different types of devices. So you want to make sure that they have those accounts on hand. When you first set it all up. That way you're not running around trying to you know, dig pieces of paper and things out of the closets or out of, I remember my parents' old phone book would have like all the passwords stashed in the back, right? So make sure you have your account, username and password. You wanna make sure that you know how to install the apps on the mobile device, right? Because we have to install the Assistant app as well as all the smart devices apps on there. And then also you want to make sure you know what the Wi-Fi router and the password is for your internet. So gather all those things up, and then that way when you set everything up, you'll have all that information ready to go. So next, talking about the devices. So when you purchase your device, again, try to make sure it's compatible with whichever platform you choose. So if it's with Alexa, make sure it's compatible with Alexa. Google, same thing. Now, what's nice is when you go into those smart assistant apps, like on my phone, for Alexa app, I can actually search by device and it will show me all the different brands. So like Casa is one that I use for my light bulb. So I can go under Casa and I can see which light bulbs are currently compatible with my Alexa. So that's one way you can do it. Or you can, again, just check the boxes or the labels when you purchase. Also, don't forget when you're adding those devices to your home, you still have to have that smart device app in addition to your smart assistant app, because that's how they will communicate initially with each other to find the smart device, is that it wants to use that app to make those connections. You'll also want to keep that smart device app because any kind of firmware updates that happen to the devices are going to happen through that app and not necessarily through Alexa or Google. What I like to do is just make a smart home folder and all of my apps go into that smart home folder, and that way I know where they all are. So this one, the Start Simple and Add-on, is talking about our simple commands and routines. So start small. Don't feel like you've got to make, you know, the biggest, most complicated actions and routines possible. Start with something easy, you know, 1 to 2 things. Turn on a light, you know, at 6 a.m., turn on this lamp. You know, when I say Google vacuum the floor, the Roomba turns on, right? Keep them nice and simple. Once you've figured out that system and how the language works in those programs, then you can create the most intricate Rube Goldberg, routine you can imagine. Now, there are a lot of commands, and Alexa is not a mind reader, but I find that she works best when you say things to her in a particular way, right? There is the language of it all. Of course, we have to say her name first, and then we have to tell her particular things. Sometimes we forget that we have to say things in a particular order, or we forget the exact wording. I know for me, I would always try to say, turn on Spotify or turn on Netflix. And she goes, well, you could just say open. Like, she prefers me to say open Netflix or open Spotify, not turn on. So I have to remember to say open, not turn on. So here, what I'm talking about is creating, some kind of list of those useful commands for us, especially if you're somebody who gets forgetful or distracted. To have that printout of those frequently used commands can be very easy for us, to not have to try and command her and she gets it wrong and we try it again and it's still wrong. So I just have a couple here where it says, Alexa, set timer for 10 minutes. Alexa, play Silver Springs on Spotify. Alexa, add milk to shopping list. That adds it to Alexa's shopping list. Alexa, add milk to our groceries shopping list, adds it to a specific Our Groceries app. So see the difference there too. So if I just said shopping list, that's going to go to Alexa's app or Alexa's list, as opposed to the other grocery app list that I wanted. And then this last one, I cannot recommend this enough. Please, please, please try it before you buy it. And this is also my shameful pitch to use the APTAT short-term device program. So here, I wanted to walk you through my specific story here and show you kind of the cost difference that occurred. So I tried the Google Nest Hub before I tried the Echo Show. And then I tried out a smart lamp. And then we realized that really didn't do what we wanted. And we decided to go with smart bulbs instead. And then I tried a couple of smart plugs for some other appliances in the household. So if I had tried all of those on my own and just purchased them, I would have been spending $431, right? The Google Nest cost $100, the Echo Show was $250, and a $65 lamp, and then a couple plugs for $17. It sounds cheap when you maybe do each thing individually, but once you total that up, that's almost $500 I would have spent. What I ended up purchasing was, I decided I needed the Echo Show. I decided to go to smart plugs, and I went to the smart bulbs instead of the lamp. So instead of spending $431, I spent $311. So that was a pretty big savings for me, just by trying things out through our lending program instead of purchasing it, finding it being the wrong things, and then having to purchase something else in addition. So while I'm on this page, let me just take you to, or give you our short-term loan program library. Oh, except I typed it in wrong. That doesn't help anybody. But this is where you can see our inventory of things that are available for up to 30 days for free, that you can try through our system. For free, you can try it out, see if it works for you, you bring it back, and then you can make your decisions if you want to purchase on your own. So that is al.atforall.com. All right. Oh, I'm quickly running out of time. So I just want to talk about a quick few features that I thought were interesting in Alexa specifically. And again, these are things that may be available in those other ones, but they were just fun things that I found when I was playing around with my device. There is a feature called drop-in. So this allows you to connect your Alexa with other Alexa devices or through your app for a video chat. So if I had my Alexa app open, I could actually video chat with my Echo in my kitchen from here at work. Or I could connect with somebody else's Echo while I'm at my Echo in my kitchen, and we could have a video chat together. Now, there is a paid remote caregiving service that Amazon does offer called Alexa Together. So it's that video chat, but with some other capabilities to it. So that link is there if you want to look at it. Show and tell is the ability for you to hold up an item in front of your smart assistant with that display and say, you know, tell me what this is. And it will tell you what's in your hand. I will say it works best if they are labeled products. So if it's like a box of crackers, it'll usually read that text and go, oh, you have graham crackers. Whereas if I just hold up like a very generic looking water bottle, it might think it's a bottle. It might think it's a canister of something else. Just kind of depends on the picture. Voice view. So this allows visually impaired or blind users to use gestures to navigate the Echo display devices, but also has that screen reader support. Live Translate was a feature, but has been discontinued. But you can still ask Alexa to translate phrases in multiple language. So you could say, Alexa, say, hello, how are you in German? And then she would tell you how to do that. I don't have time for this one, unfortunately. Oh, no, well, this one too, but just remember when you are programming your smart devices, they're not always as smart as you think they are. So you have to be realistic. It can't do everything all at once. You do have to do that programming. You do have to do a lot of setup, but once it's done, you know, a lot of times it's very, very easy to utilize fairly quickly. But just be ready to rephrase your commands, be more specific, or just directly correct her. So here is our fun example here that we have on our screen. So we have an Alexa in our office. And so when we are thinking about things to purchase for the library, we just tell her to add it to our shopping list. And so in the middle here, where it's a shopping list, we were talking about baby monitors that we saw that were designed for deaf parents. And so, you know, being the types that it would either detect crying and how it would notify the parents. And so I just said, you know, Alexa, add baby monitor for deaf to the shopping list. And instead she thought I said baby monitor for deaf. So she's not always the smartest, but she tries really hard. So we appreciate that. But we'd have to go in and fix that. I don't have time for, unfortunately, to show you the video of her doing the show and tell. But if you have access to the slides, I think it should be able to play for you. But it's basically, it was kind of fun to watch her. Anything that was really generic, she would come up with some very interesting things to talk about or mention. And then lastly, these are the resources that I talked about. So please feel free to click through those. It does talk stuff about like what a smart home assistant is, the pros and cons of Sidewalk, the voice commands for Alexa. If you wanted some more information about those protocols that I talked about, like Matter, there's a lot of changes that are happening with those right now. So definitely check out that FAQ. And yeah, I think that's it. So if there's any questions, I'll take a sip of water. If anybody wants to jump on the mic, feel free. Graham, looks like you got a question for us.
Sure. This is great stuff. I mean, I was looking at the Alexa app, and I have Alexa at home. You know, I've got a Tower and I've got an Echo Dot. And I had some smart plugs, but what happened for me, and you may have already covered this, and I apologize a few minutes late. I had some other training that they said would take 30 minutes, but actually it took over an hour or so. But my question is this, the power goes out a lot. When you said that, I really felt that, okay? So every time the power goes out and you have all these smart devices set up, you have to reset them up. You have to reestablish connectivity or anything. Is that just something that you just got to lump it, you know, grin and bear it, the old saying goes?
Yeah, if you're using those ones that are using your internet Wi-Fi, I haven't found a quick workaround for that. Like I still haven't reprogrammed my vacuum at my house, to be honest, because with our power going out, we haven't lost our internet's been pretty good. But like if I change my internet router, or if I change that internet name, you know, how to find your specific Wi-Fi, once that changes, you've got to go in and fix all your devices to reconnect to that internet. So yeah, it can be a pain if you're using the smart assistants and using those. I haven't found a good solution yet. Definitely something that I would like to find too, because especially if you've got that many devices relying on your internet connection, when those problems happen, it can be really, really extremely frustrating. You're like, why did I even set these up? So yeah,
Yeah. Another question I had, this is quick. Is it possible that I could take 15 minutes of your time in your office there, since we're both bottom dwellers in the Homewood office? I had some things that showed up on my app, on my Alexa app, that I wanted to ask you about. Would that be possible?
Absolutely. Yeah, come on down. And we invite everybody, if you want to come and try some of these out before you put them in your homes, because I know for some people are like, I just don't want to put this in my house. I don't know how it works. That's exactly what the demo center is for too. So if there's things you want to try and see how it works first, you're not exactly sure what you're doing with them, definitely schedule some time with us, and we'll see what we can come up with. Oh, we've got a question. Oh, sorry.
Say thank you. This is great information. I always underutilize technology. I have it. I don't use it to its full potential. So this is very helpful. Thank you.
Excellent. Well, thank you for your questions. We've got another one in the chat here. It says, we're using a motion sensor along with Alexa skill to redirect a person from the laundry room. Oh, this is interesting. He tries to open the washer when it's running. The sensor is placed outside the laundry room, and we programmed Alexa to say, stop, the washer is currently running and can't be opened. You need to go back to your room. There are a couple Alexa devices in the home, so this also notifies when he is in the laundry room. Oh, this is a great use. I love this. Just a nice, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Not indirect, but non-invasive. There we go. That's what I'm looking for, where it just provides that verbal reminder for somebody that they can't do what, you know, go into a particular area at this time, but also giving that heads up to a caregiver to let them know, hey, somebody's trying to get somewhere that maybe they don't need to be right now. Marilyn, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I had read that if you're using a VPN for your internet, that it can not play well with smart devices. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, and I didn't dig too much into that specifically. For this one, this was kind of more of just a generic kind of getting people on their feet and learning more about it. I need to do a little bit more research on that one as well to see kind of workarounds for that one too. But thank you for that heads up. So the VPN, I always forget what it stands for, but essentially it's the you know, what's kind of preventing other things from knowing what you're looking at, or ways to kind of not hide your internet activity, but you kind of trying to put some barriers between you and the rest of the world when you're out and about in the internet. So thank you for that mention. And again, that's something I need to do a little bit more research myself on.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Oh, okay. It sounds, Chase is one of our rehab engineers, and he was talking about that it's not really disrupting his local services. Are you having problems with your smart devices interacting though, Chase? I'm curious. And while we wait for that response, I did put our Survey Monkey in the chat. We do appreciate any feedback that we get, and I'll take this moment to say thank you again to Alabama Council on Developmental Disabilities for helping us out with the Spanish language translation services. So I know that they also appreciate the feedback to make sure that this is reaching their communities and people that they're trying to reach as well. So we do appreciate that feedback. All right, and last slide with devices with the VPN. Okay, excellent. So Chase, it sounds like you might have the secret to success for VPNs and smart devices. So I may need to talk with you later and see if there's something we can create in terms of like a resource or something like that. So thank you for that. Okay, so last link that I want to share with you, of course, is for our next upcoming webinar, and it will be April 30th, so that'll be the last Tuesday of the month. And we are still trying to figure out good times to do these webinars. So I know we were doing kind of 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and that was getting to be a little late for people. So we tried morning today. So this next one, we're actually going to be moving to 2 o'clock. I think we'll kind of bounce around on times for the next couple of webinars, and then see how people feel with times, and if there's one time that works for I mean, not one time's going to work for everybody, but you know, what's a good time for most. So I did put that bit.ly link in the chat, and that will take you directly to that Zoom registration. And we will be talking about accessible video gaming. So looking at some of the assistive technology that's out there, talking about where to find accessibility features and settings within the games, but also within the systems. And then also just talking about some considerations, questions to ask when you're, if you're a service provider working with somebody with a disability, how to, you know, kind of determine what their needs are. And also just some things to think about if you are a gamer and shopping around for a game, and what to look for in terms of that equipment or game setting. So hopefully we'll all see you there. And thank you everyone for joining us. You can always contact us at APTAT or APTAT at rehab.alabama.gov.